Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Mason, and today I'm going to be sharing with you what I've been reading over the holidays. There's a bit of an ancient Greece theme to it, so let's go ahead and get started. First off, I'm a good way into this at this point. It's a library copy of the Iliad, translated by Robert Fagles. So it's translated as poetry. I did try a Penguin Classics version that was entirely in prose, but I kind of prefer this version, to be honest. Begins, Rage Goddess, sing the rage of Peleus' son Achilles, murderous, doomed, that cost the Achaeans countless losses, hurling down to the house of death so many sturdy souls. So yeah, it still has a bit of rhythm to it, although it's not dactylic hexameter. That would sound pretty ridiculous in English. I think it's that you have long and short sounds instead of stressed and unstressed syllables. It's been pretty entertaining so far. It's sort of, if you've ever seen the like animated, over-the-top martial arts series Dragon Ball Z, the Iliad is sort of the ancient Greek equivalent. In that, there's a lot of action and violence, and also, at the same time, a fair bit of interesting character development. Essentially, the king offends Achilles and causes this great warrior to leave the fighting in the Trojan War just when he's needed most. Then there's, of course, this long sequence in which Homer names every single participant in the entire war. In retrospect, I probably would have preferred to skip that. But after that, the action kind of gets going, and although Achilles is sitting out the whole time, it's clear that it's building up to a story in which he takes a leading role in the fighting at some point. So, interesting war story, and just a work that it's good to have under your belt, I think. Let's see. Now, before I move on to the rest of Homer, I'm interested in reading this. It's Aeschylus's series of plays called the Oresteia, and it's a series of 3 plays following the story of Homer's Iliad, where the king Agamemnon returns home only to find this plot against him that ultimately results in a sort of cycle of violence and the establishment of a system of laws and sort of a movement from the sort of violence and constant warfare of the Iliad to a Greek city-state with codes of laws and I guess what we would think of as order and civilization. That's Aeschylus for you. Looking forward to reading that. And of course I'm planning on reading the Odyssey as well. That's Homer again. And this is a translation by Powell. Yeah, Barry Powell. As you can see, it's a very lovely cover, I think. And I learned about this one in the 10th grade. The story of Odysseus, trying to return home after the war at Troy, and the sort of various encounters he has, including in what we saw in class, an encounter with Christopher Lee, who plays the blind sage Tiresias. So yeah, this Odysseus narrative is going to be very interesting, I think. Now, there are a few other plays as well that I'd like to read while I'm studying this ancient Greek period. One is definitely Oedipus Rex, or Oedipus the King, the play by Sophocles. We had to read this in high school as well, I think, as well as Antigone. I'd like to revisit sort of this story of the king investigating a crime that the more he gets into it, the more he seems to be the one implicated in this classic story of falling into a prophecy, as in a lot of these Greek stories tends to happen, with fate being the main actor, causing him to murder his father and marry his mother, a prophecy he was trying to avoid but ended up accidentally causing to come true without his knowing it. So, yeah, looking forward to at least revisiting this a bit. And I would like to familiarize myself a little bit with Aristophanes, the old comedy playwright, and I think the only one we have. A lot of these Greek dramatists and poets, we've lost so much of their work. The best known Aristophanes story is probably Lysistrata, in which the women of Greece bring an end to the Peloponnesian War by withholding sex from their husbands, basically, until the men, stop their senseless fighting and, agree to a truce. I'm not sure if that one is in here, but Frog and a few others, Wasps and Women at Thesmophoria. So, not actually his most famous play, but still it'll be interesting to get to know this guy a little better. And I'm also looking at some histories. Now, I got a lot of these recommendations so far from Steve Donoghue, who has produced these series of videos this year, the Western Canon Starter Kit, he calls it. And you sort of start from the earliest influences in Western literature and work your way up. So he starts with the Bible, and then he goes to the Greeks. So, I mean, I've already, read enough of the Bible to say I kind of know what's going on there. So, moving on to these guys, I have Herodotus, so something I've thrown in there from historiography, because he includes the playwrights, he includes the poets, but not the historians. That's Herodotus's Histories, which mostly covers the Persian Wars, whereas right here I've got Thucydides, his coverage of the Peloponnesian War. So I don't really plan on reading these whole history texts from beginning to end, but it's very interesting because you're learning about sort of these periods in Greek history, but also these historians themselves, the sort of father of history. I've studied history a lot myself, so it'll be really cool to see where things got started. And same thing with Thucydides, who was sort of the first man to make history into a science. So, in terms of looking for objective proof, political realism in terms of attributing political decisions not to the gods, not to, sort of heroic contest, but merely a competition of interests, competition over resources, that kind of thing. So, Thucydides, the Peloponnesian War, that's going to be interesting to at least take a look at. And a few more, again, recommendations from Donoghue's channel. We've got the Selected Dialogues of Plato, Crito and Euthyphro, two of the dialogues where Plato essentially puts his ideas into the mouths of major classical Greek figures. And this is the specific text that I saw recommended. It was the Basic Works of Aristotle, where, this thing is huge. It's been a long time since I saw the physics and the metaphysics and the ethics in philosophy classes back in college. So it'll be interesting to take another look at Aristotle. He's kind of dry. A lot of these philosophers, the ancient Greeks included, just have the driest writing style. But the thoughts, their ideas are very interesting. So I'll be reading those over the course of the rest of this month, basically. Well, there's this Christmas break. If you've had to read any of these for classes or just on your own time out of interest, I'd love to hear sort of what your take is on them, whether or not they're really as significant as many of them are made out to be. And yeah, feel free to like this video if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys with my thoughts after I finish these. Take care.